Another like hot topic in this postseason has been what's going on with these teams that have, have had the privilege of a bye, and then they just perform badly in the postseason. I mean, we saw it last year, and we're seeing it again this year. And this year so far, the record has been pretty bad. 4-9 is the record of the teams that had a bye. The Orioles obviously being one of them, the Dodgers being the other. Two teams in total have been swept, those two. And, the Dodgers just look like an absolute juggernaut coming into the playoffs. Obviously, the Orioles coming in with 101 wins. You had a lot of high expectations for both teams going deep into the playoffs, and they both get swept. And, we even look at some of the other teams that you expect to do well, and they just didn't. They fell flat. And you kind of have to wonder, you have the Rangers that came in off of tons of momentum. Some of these other teams did too. The Diamondbacks are just playing ridiculous ball right now, and I think it has to do with momentum as well. So we kind of talked about this, about the O's specifically, having that time off, where they're going to be impacted. And Ryan, you and I talked to Gavin about this, and he kind of said that there could be something to be said about it. And it seems as if that's actually perhaps a true thing. Is it a coincidence that last year's bye teams and this year's bye teams are performing this badly? What say you?
Well, so look, they changed the postseason numbers with last year when they had the wild card teams, right? And what I love, and I think what fans love, they love excitement. Postseason baseball is so much different than regular season, just because obviously it's the playoffs, but the other part of it is that you can't replicate that intensity, those moments, pitch by pitch, like watching the Phillies fans go nuts every time anything exciting happens. You can't really replicate that anywhere else. So I get it. But what's happened now is that the format of saying this isn't football, where you can take time off almost 5 days, and all of a sudden that gives your body rest. Baseball players don't need the rest of a week. They need to keep the reps. When you go out there, I'll put it into context for people here. For a baseball player to take 2 days off, 3 days off, and then you come back, you're like, well, I don't know if I'm going to remember how to hit a baseball today, because the timing is off. And I really, truly mean that. It's one day to have a day off and you clear your head, you get right back on the horse. But when you go through a season 162, and the only time that you had this long of an extended break was the All-Star break, and then in the biggest moment of the season, the year, you are asking the best teams, hey, congrats, your reward is you don't have to play in this best of 3 series, not a win or go home, a best of 3, and you get to rest for 5 days without seeing any live arms and pitchings from other teams. And I don't care what they say about sim games and facing your own guys. That is not the same shit. No one, I know guys that play so well, and I sometimes was that way. I could do better against some of my guys than I would against other guys. You can't replicate the game. And I think what we're seeing is the teams that had everything to play for continue to play well, and Texas and Arizona are scorching hot.
Yeah.
And when you have two teams that are coming at you like a buzzsaw, they can upset the best teams. And we've seen it so far. And really the only team that's figured this out is the Houston Astros.
Yeah, I think that's they're the one team that somehow just didn't seem to be impacted by it. I don't know if it was Minnesota just wasn't as hot as Texas, or the Diamondbacks coming in. But like Brad said, it's just so much momentum, and it doesn't really even matter who wins that wild card round. They're going to have momentum because they just came off of a playoff win. So they're all of a sudden they're hyped. They have this, the ball is starting to roll. Whereas now the team that just won the series or the division, there's this 5-day gap, and it's like, okay, this team's coming in and they're rolling. We now got to start trying to get the ball rolling before they get here as well. And like you said, that's not really possible. You can't gain momentum off of hitting off live batting practice off your own guys. That's not going to get you in the zone. That's not going to make you feel like, oh, we are so ready. It's not the same as taking 2 games in the wild card round in front of sold out stadiums. Like, there's just a momentum aspect to it where it's going to be interesting to see if anything happens with the format. I don't think we'll see it in the next year or two. They're going to want to see if this continues, but it's definitely will be interesting to see, even if teams, it will be interesting to see what they do during the bye weeks, because like you said, they've tried these sim games and all that, and it just doesn't seem like those are helping.
Yeah, for sure. I think this is going to be a conversation that, of course, we're going to be continuing going on into next year. Maybe we'll see some rule changes about that in the off season, but it'll be interesting for sure. One thing I will say is that, as we get closer to the end of the season, the end of the postseason, and into the World Series, is that a lot of the rule changes that we saw over the course of this year have been, I was a little bit apprehensive to accept, but man, it's been awesome for the game. And I just wonder if maybe this is going to be another one that they end up addressing. So say what you want about Manfred, but it's been good. I think good for the league.
Yeah, it's been good for the sport. I mean, look, the baseball needed an upgrade. They needed to try to move forward with the times, and they did it really without changing the integrity of the game. Even in some cases, it was just to try to speed things up, the overall experience, the entertainment part, because that's what drives it. If fans at the younger generations and baseball fans already are entertained, then you're accomplishing 2 separate, goals, right? It's keep your fan bases that love the sport, and how do you attract the next wave of fans that want to play baseball, that want to be a part of it. Now, again, for the formats, it just will be interesting. I still look at this. I told you this, Brad. It's crazy to me adding the extra wild card team. So there was 2 84-win teams that made the playoffs out of the National League this year. It was the Miami Marlins and the Arizona Diamondbacks. In the old format, if it was just doing 4 versus 5, and that'd be the ride or die, win or go home game, one of those teams is left out. And you look at the American League side, Rangers getting 90 wins. The Rays, second best team in the American League, are a wild card. So it just goes to show you just got to get in to see what happens. But clearly, though, I mean, that's what makes Houston even more impressive. Even with all the changes, they're just not phased. And that's something that you got to give them credit through all of it. And one more thing. I think the Orioles, the 5 days off for a team that's not experienced, that hurts.
Yeah.
Like that's a part of it. How do you get your feet wet? And I think that's why the Diamondbacks, they have a similar style over there. They have a lot of guys with inexperience. But I'll tell you what, going to play the first game like it's game 163 helps. And Corbin Carroll's going to be the NL Rookie of the Year. Dude's a stud. I think that matters for especially young and experienced players.
Yeah.